It's this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Steve Mallett, General Manager of Citicorp, to come forward and present to council his periodic report on the operation of Citicorp. And I've got to say, it's my observation that this board and general manager are working to live within the issues associated with Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality and the consent administrative order that they were given some time back. They have worked to not offend that commission and at the same time work to show the efforts that have gone into construction that has been done over a period of time to resolve the issues that are part of that consent administrative order. And I just want to personally say thank you. I think you're doing a great job at this time.
I'd second that as well.
So, Mr. Mallett.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, and I do appreciate the comments as well as staff, and on behalf of the staff and Board of Directors, we appreciate the opportunity to again make a status report to you folks. This is the third one since I've been here, and so some of the items will be the same, and some of them will be a little bit different because while some of the things haven't changed, there's a lot of stuff that kind of has changed over the last year and a half. So, and I apologize, some of the words are small enough there kind of to keep me on task rather than you folks be able to see them back there. But if anybody wants a copy of the presentation for any reason, just let me know and I'll be sure to get them one. So just real quickly, some year-to-date accomplishments. Since I was here in January 2014, we filled the CFO position. Hope Penman, been with us for 37 years. She retired a little over a month ago, and Taryn Childers has replaced her and so far has hit the ground running. Very pleased to have him. Seems to be a good addition to our management staff. You folks are well aware, appointed General Bill Harmon to our Board of Directors. He's been an asset already. Continued construction of our multi-year program to deal with the CAO. So we just continue to march along those lines and continue to address the problems that we have at the treatment plant and the collection system. We began revising our specifications as well as our policies so that we can have a little bit more orderly development with regards to water and wastewater extensions. The board passed a resolution to approve a one-year lease extension. I understand that's on the agenda later on. I think the first item of new business. So we would hope and ask that you folks can consider doing the same. And we have already approved our 2014-15 budget. Quick update on our water system. Our reservoir is currently full. In January, we were down a little over 8 feet through pumping and rainfall. Up to this point, I believe right around the middle of May, we were brimming full, and we've been pretty much full ever since then, so we're in good shape headed into the summer. We placed the Huckleberry Reservoir in service in 1996, and it was projected at that time to serve the needs of the community until 2035. So it's, we're headed up on 2015, so we're 20 years away. So obviously, as mentioned here, our master plan is going to address whether or not that 2035 is still a reasonable time frame or if we have a little bit more time than we thought, so we're going to revise that number in our current revision of the master plan. There's a picture of the reservoir as it probably is today, with it being full. Treatment distribution for the water system, our long-term concerns continue to include, as I mentioned, I believe last time, identifying an alternate source of water, a secondary water source, and explore any type of regional partnerships can make that possibility. Replacement of galvanized. We have some small 2-inch galvanized pipe still in our system, not a lot of it, but it's probably some of the most porous pipe we have in town and responsible for a lot of our leaking pipe. And asbestos cement pipe, it was recommended in 2003 to replace all of that pipe, and that is the lion's share of the estimated $35 million as it was estimated in 2003 to replace all that pipe. And we've done some replacement of the small 2-inch galvanized, really haven't even started on addressing the asbestos cement pipe at this time, but that's something we're going to have to do in the relatively near future. And of course, regulatory concerns. We know what we're dealing with now as far as ADH and the criteria that we have for treated water, but that can change from time to time, and we're always aware of that. We have disinfection byproduct rule that changes, so all the disinfection byproducts from chlorine, we'll have to be dealing with that in a little bit different manner moving forward. But I think, again, we're in good shape to do that. Currently, what we're concentrating more on is our unaccounted for water. That's something that every water system across the country deals with. It's currently approaching 15%. So 10% has always kind of been considered the industry standard. Anything over that, you start taking a closer look at it, and we've started to rev up closer to 15 in the past few months, in the last couple of years. And what is unaccounted for water? Well, there's two reasons for it. You have real losses, as they call it, and that's basically leaks. That's water that you make, you put into the pipes, and it escapes, and there's basically no use of the water whatsoever. So it's not being consumed or not being used for any purpose. You're just losing that. So you're basically losing the cost of treating and delivering that water. And then so how do you address that? We're in the process of selecting a firm to come in and do a leak detection survey. We're trying to decide whether we want to do the whole system or just the older parts of the system or just the metal pipes, or how we want to go about doing that. And then we will prioritize and begin repairing isolated leaks that they find. So that's one way to start that process. And then the other side of the unaccounted for water equation is apparent losses, and that's basically where you make the water, you deliver the water, and the water is used, but for some reason it's not recorded. And that can happen through non-metered use if someone's illegally connected without a meter. Obviously, water's being consumed but not being accounted for, not being paid for. And then we also, through under-registering of meters or dead meters, if you have a meter that's 20 years old and it doesn't register like it should, it may not register any of the low flow and only high flow. So obviously you can improve that situation by replacing your meters, and that's something we're going to talk about a little bit moving forward. Our existing meters are largely past the recommended life. They usually recommend about 10 years for the older meters, and we've got a lot of meters in the ground that are approaching and even past 20 years. So obviously we're assuming that those meters are probably under registering. Some of them may be only registering whenever you hit the shower or washing machine, but just normal sink usage may not be registering at all. So we're going to do in a process of conducting a study, we're going to test approximately 200 of our existing meters, the majority of which will be residential. A firm will come in and pull about, I think, 180 residential meters out, replace them with a newer technology meter, and do two things. We'll evaluate the meters that they take out, see where they're under registering, and based on that, they will create a revenue enhancement model. And basically what they'll do is tell us how much money we are losing, how much revenue we're losing by under registering meters. So based on that, we'll look at the options moving forward, whether we want to go in and replace all of our meters at once, whether we want to just come in and replace a portion of them, and it'll probably entirely depend on the numbers that they bring back. Based on what they've seen and based on the age of the meters in our system, they expect that we could increase our revenues by 2 to 5%, and that could be up, in excess of $1 million a year in additional revenues, which obviously would go a long way to helping. And again, that's water that's already being used. We're not required to do any more to make any more water. It's just water that is currently being used and not paid for. So we will be installing remote read meters at those locations, at those 180 locations, and may ask some of you folks if y'all are interested in volunteering to be one of our pilot sites, because the new meters are ultrasonic. They have certain customer features to it. Down the road, you would be able to go in there and monitor your own usage if you want to. Set thresholds. If it peaked past a certain point, it could send you a text message. I'm not sure if these meters in the pilot will be able to do that, but that's one of the things we're going to look at moving forward and see if that's something that we want to invest in. And again, we'll evaluate the options based on the projected revenue based from this sample, and we'll bring something back to our board and most likely the council at some point in time, because it may require bond funding or something that we could pay back in time. The good news is it should pay back in 3, 4, 5 years, and we would receive the benefits past that. Moving on to the water treatment plant, none of this has changed since the last time. We're still rated at 20 million gallons a day. Historically, our peak demand was in 2012. June of 2012, it was almost 13.5 MGD, so there's still some capacity there, obviously, so we're not too concerned about that at this point. Our peak production all of last year was only a little over 11 MGD, and we have not approached that number yet this current year. And again, our reservoir is designed to deliver 40 million gallons a day for 120 days. So when we get to a bottleneck or we get to some improvements, it's going to be at the plant before we would need to do anything at the reservoir. But obviously, being able to expand your plant is a lot quicker and easier than going out and building a new lake or a reservoir. So the planning periods would be much different for both of those. As the mayor mentioned, moving on to the wastewater system, our consent administrative order that was issued in November of 2009, ADEQ has recently notified that we failed to meet a deadline of July 2012. And again, they didn't bring that up until this year. I believe EPA got involved, probably was reviewing the file and challenged ADEQ as to why they haven't addressed that with us. And so ADEQ, in my opinion, I think they were kind of forced to deal with it. The best way to deal with it was to amend the CAO We have done that. They moved the deadline to 2016, which coincides with all of our other deadlines that were involved with it. I'm not sure, I wasn't around at that point, I'm not sure why that one was different. But it wasn't anything that everybody didn't know about, but for whatever reason, they chose to come back at a later date and deal with it. So all of the wording in the administrative order amendment was fine. The only thing that was not fine that we didn't appreciate was a $20,000 penalty, but we did negotiate that down from $61,500. The original penalty was $61,500. Based on the efforts that we had made, obviously all the work we're doing at the plant now is to address and to achieve that deadline, so it's not like we ignored it and weren't doing anything. We were just, we're not going to be able to meet that deadline. So currently it's in the public comment phase, and we expect an execution date in early July. We do have till 2022 to meet compliance with all of the criteria in the CAO, most of it being collection system rehabilitation, and we've started those projects. So in addition to the almost $13 million we have under contract for the plant going on right now, we have, our consultant has estimated up to $30 million needed to address the collection system over the next 10 years. Now that's an estimate, and a lot of that work hadn't been done to define what those projects are, but that's a guess at this point, and I believe we've already spent about $4 to 5 million of that 30. So we've already started the process to make the repairs that have been identified. So that totals over $42 million to be spent over the next 10 years in the wastewater system, and by comparison, again, the reservoir was $20 million, so almost more than twofold the size of the largest project the City Corporation has had to date is what we're facing now. A couple of projects that we've got ongoing and complete. Obviously, I believe I mentioned this one last time. You can see that the water tank at Skyline Drive is complete. On the left was what it looked like a few months ago, and on the right is what it looks like now. If you've had a chance to drive by there, you probably noticed it. This is the large project at the wastewater treatment plant. You can see on the left is the construction of a third clarifier, and on the right is the construction of an aeration basin, and all the plates in the bottom are just air diffusers. The pipe there goes through the pipe, and it basically bubbles up and treats the waste stream. This is an example of capital projects, and I'm sure you can't see that far, but we've completed 3 projects to date. 23rd Street Pump Station, we eliminated one of our pump stations, which is always a good thing. East 2nd Street, we replaced the wastewater line down it before it was paved, and other various pipeline replacements. And I'm not sure you can see, but the method being used below, there actually is cast in place pipe. The inner lining of the pipe actually comes out of the back of that truck in a flat form, but it's hollow, so they put that into the pipe, and they use hot water to force it up in the line, and you can see what it looks like when it goes through a manhole. It's basically just a lining of the interior pipe, and then the last picture is where they go in and cut that out. So if the pipeline is not deficient to the point to where they can't, if it's offset or something, they can't use this, but if the pipe is just porous, but it's still fairly good structurally, they can just push a new liner through it, push hot water through it, and basically all they have to do is go in and retie the connections to the houses. But it's much better than having to dig up streets and yards, and it's becoming just as effective price-wise as some of the open cut is as well by the time you figure in pavement replacement. So the other thing, obviously one of the big ticket items we had last year was support for utility replacement relocation for the street projects, and the 3 that we probably had the most to do with were North El Paso, Phoenix Overpass, H and Parker. We spent a total of about $1.3 million on those 3 projects, and glad to do that. Budget update, our capital budget for this year is $3.8 million. If we spend all of that $3.8 million, we will be down to the minimum reserve level set by the board. The board has established a minimum level that they're comfortable with keeping in our coffers, and if we spend that entire amount and stay at budget, which I'll show you later, we've kind of trended upwards of that, so hopefully we'll have a little bit more money available. But if we spend that and the budget stays true, we will be right at the minimum level set by the board of directors. So we've fortunate to have a little bit of surplus funding over the last couple of years, but at the end of this year, we will have taken that down to a level where we need to make some other improvements. And the capital budget from 2015 to 18, so the next 4-year period is estimated at 40.8, or the needs are estimated at 40.8 million, almost 21 million in additional wastewater collection system improvements, 9.5 million in water treatment plant expansions and upgrades, and almost $2 million in water distribution piping replacement. And that's just the first step of the $35 million that we talked about earlier. And so while we're identifying $40.8 million worth of needs, we're estimating we're going to generate about $7 million in capital funds over that time frame. So obviously, there is a deficit there that we'll have to deal with. Then past that, long term, there's probably $50 million in identified needs. The remainder of the wastewater collection system improvements, probably around $11 million. And then there's the item for the AC water pipe replacement of $35 million that we will obviously have to do over time. And then a little over $4 million for fire flow improvements that have been identified in the last master plan. And then none of that includes an additional water source, future wastewater and water plant expansions, or the possibility of an outfall line to the river as an alternate to one of the plant expansions. So what are our funding options? I'll run through a few things we've talked about and actually implemented. Obviously, you can increase your revenues and decrease expenses. The thing I mentioned earlier about replacing all of our meters could increase revenues by 2 to 5%, generate more than $1 million. Now, granted, there would be probably a 4 to 5 year payback period before we would realize those additional revenues, but we should enjoy that additional revenue for 10 to 15 years after that. 2013-14 budget versus actual, our expense budget, I'm very proud and pleased to say that in 2013 to 14, our budget versus actual came in at 8.6% decrease. So we improved by $540,000 on our expense budget. And then we followed up this year with an even better year. Again, we budgeted over a little more than $6 million through May. We've only spent 5.41 through May, which is a savings of $700,000 or 11.4% decrease. We also are enjoying a $200,000 increase in revenues, so we're projecting at the end of this year we're going to be about $1 million better than budgeted in our net income, which again, that's a big help and a big boost, and very thankful that it's not the other way around, and have staff to thank for cracking down on some of the things that we were spending money on. So hopefully we'll continue that trend. Obviously, we can modify our wastewater and water fees. Most of the fees we have on the books right now haven't been modified since the 80s. A trip fee, most of our trip fees are $7.50, and it's probably tough to pull out of the parking lot for that. But we feel that the fee should offset the cost of providing service to that individual customer, because I'm talking about trips that are originated by a customer or services that are originated by a customer, because right now all the other customers are subsidizing meter taps, shut-offs. Any trip that we make out that we're charging $7.50 for is probably costing us more in the $25 to $30 range. So what they're not paying, everybody else is absorbing. So we're going to come back probably next month, if not next month in August, for recommended fee revisions, so that the service that these folks are requiring for their individual purposes will be covered at their cost. So that we do plan on bringing something back where we've almost got that ready to present to the council probably next month. A couple other ones, obviously, are bond issue. The only debt we have on the books right now is the $9 million bond issue from '09. Any additional bond issue would likely require some kind of fee or rate increases, but again, that would totally depend on what size bond issue and how much rate tolerance we have now. And then obviously there's the option of sales tax. We could look at extension of the current sales tax, but that's 7 years from now, or possibly a separate sales tax campaign, which I assume is not very likely. So. Just in summary, we will continue to monitor our expenses. We're going to look at the revenue enhancements from the meter study. We're going to look at the customer-originated fees and probably consider a bond issue by the end of this year, or else our capital budget will take a major cut next year. So we're going to have to look at some way to fund that. And again, the rate study is currently underway. That's going to consider the effects of everything that I've mentioned and come back and tell us what the impact on our rates may be with these different options, and obviously that'll help drive the decision moving forward, and again, we would bring all that to the council before moving forward. So looking ahead, we're going to continue revising our standard specs. We are currently working with ATU, the Emergency Management Department, on developing our emergency response plan. Excited about that partnership. Our ConAgra contract, we operate their pretreatment plant, expires in 2015. We're working on that. The engineering department, Lance Bartlett's here tonight as well. We're going to bring our modeling capability for water modeling in-house. We haven't been able to do that in probably 15 years. And we're going to obviously continue to focus on our unaccounted for water and keep that on the front burner, and then develop a plan for funding our capital needs. So in closing, again, appreciate the opportunity to come visit with you folks, present an update on what we've got going on. I want to thank the council and all the folks at home and all the customers for giving us the opportunity to provide the community with water and wastewater service. Are there any questions about any of that or anything that maybe I didn't mention?
Think you could just leave one of those dead meters in front of mine?
That's kind of the flip side. If you do volunteer for this, it's possible if you've got a real old meter that your bill may go up a little bit. So there is a flip side to that. So.
Can I ask?
Yes, ma'am.
When you said you spent 1.3 million or something to move the utilities when we're building streets, do you get reimbursed at all for that? Is that just an expense?
No, ma'am, we didn't. But I will say that the city did pay for a portion of the utility relocation. It was more of a partnership. I know on H.M. Parker, we spent around $600,000 to relocate the sewer. The city and the funds that were in the road project paid for the water part of it, which was a great help to us because we would have obviously we would have had a lot of trouble coming up with all the money to do that. So I worked with Michael and we were able to do a partnership on that. We did pay for all of the water and wastewater line relocation on El Paso, but there's still some things that he was able to do to kind of keep that project within the bounds of what we had budgeted. So there's no reimbursement. I guess the only people that would be reimbursing us would probably be the city, and we have not and don't intend to ask for that. It's just most of the area was area that needed to be replaced. We don't have a whole lot of areas that really could argue being replaced anyway, so we just moved those areas up on our priority list.
Well, you guys are nice people. Thank you.
Well, and you folks are too, so we appreciate y'all.
Anything else? Thank you, Mr. Mallett. Good report. We appreciate that update. Look forward to future ones. I have one more item on the mayor's report at this time, and I've got to say that as a military commander, one of the most rewarding parts of that job was to present a military award or decoration to a deserving soldier. Now, I can't do that in this job, but I do get the same pleasure in recognizing accomplishments of city employees. So at this time, I do want to call something to your attention about one of your city employees. And with that, I would like to ask Ms. Kathy Collins to please stand with me at this time. Now, pictured here on the right is Ms. Kathy Collins, our city clerk, Russellville's city clerk. Along with her is Ms. Sandra Smith. She is a certified clerk with the Certified Clerks and Recorders Association. And she presented Ms. Kathy Collins with her certification for this position while we were at the Arkansas Municipal League meeting last week. And that was done on the original or initial night of the summer conference. This certification involves over a year of intensive study, on-site coursework, and peer evaluation to be able to receive this certification. And it allowed Kathy to improve her skills and to enhance her position and ability to do her job. And it gives me a great deal of pleasure to be able to make this announcement and this presentation to Ms. Kathy Collins. Please join me in a round of congratulations. Say something.
I would like to say that if it wasn't for the support of this council, this mayor, and other employees, that this would not have been possible for me, and I greatly appreciate all that support.
Well, thank you, Kathy. All right.